Greetings, my friends. Sebastian Gorka here, former strategist to President Donald Trump, in for Greg Kelly tonight on Newsmax. Communism. It's so passé. It's so, I don't know, 20th century, right? The adherence to Karl Marx, dead and buried and gone. If you're of a certain vintage, if, like me, you're a child of the Cold War, you can remember those incredible images from Berlin on that cold November night in 1989, when the people on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain took chisels and pickaxes to free themselves and to tear down the Berlin Wall that had divided Europe in two for decades. So we won, right? Communism, Marxism, it's dead. Not so fast, my friends. As we're going to demonstrate tonight on Greg Kelly Reports, the Marxists, albeit repackaged, are here in America, and they're stronger than ever. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the founders of perhaps one of the most influential radical left-wing organizations in America today. Here we have video of one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, Patrisse Cullors, telling the world who she is.
We actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
We are trained Marxists, one of the founders of an organization that has caused destruction across America for more than 10 months. Why is anybody surprised? Well, things have got a little difficult for Miss Cullors of late. In the last 2 days, she is in the news, but not in a good way. If you're a supporter of Black Lives Matter, she's had to resign. She's stepping down from her leadership role. It's all over the news. Why? What's the controversy? Why is she so in trouble, this black lesbian hero to the left? Well, she's not as pure a Marxist as she would have you believe. As the news has reported of late, with the money she has made as a co-founder of BLM, she's been going on a shopping spree, but she didn't go out to buy handbags or a nice new pair of high-heeled shoes. She went on a real estate shopping spree, buying mansion after mansion for herself, buying houses how many houses do you need as a Marxist? 4 houses in just the space of a few weeks? I guess it pays to be a Marxist in America. But you're not allowed to say anything about it. You're not allowed to point out the discrepancy between saying, I'm for the working class, I'm for the oppressed, I believe in social justice, and buying yourself 4 houses in a couple of weeks. Because if you criticize her, what does Patrisse have to say? Let's listen.
And the fact that the right-wing media is trying to create hysteria around my spending is frankly racist and sexist.
If you're black, if you are a member of BLM, well, you can't be criticized because you get a free ticket. It's racist, it's white supremacist. Well, let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's look at the reality of what they preach, how concepts such as critical race theory are the new Marxism in America, and how they have inveigled themselves into our culture and American education and the media. We're going to open the show right now with a person who I think epitomizes the new citizen politician. He is now the lieutenant governor of the great state of North Carolina, I am honored to have him as a regular guest on my radio show, America First. Mark Robinson, welcome to Greg Kelly Reports.
Thank you for having me here, Dr. Gorka. It's a pleasure as always. Excuse me.
So, friends, if you're not familiar with this man's story, a veteran of the U.S. Army, let us play you a little clip of how this story began. In 2018, the Greensboro Council wanted to cancel a gun show. And this resident, Mark Robinson, who at the time didn't even own a gun, said, "This is wrong. You're not allowed to do this. It's unconstitutional." And in a very brief speech that I still can't believe, to this day he tells me he didn't write down and he just did it on spec. This is what he told the council in Greensboro.
It seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous.
If you haven't seen the whole video after the show, late at night, you've got to watch it. It's incredible. And that went viral, and now he's the lieutenant governor. Mark Robinson, we'll talk about the Second Amendment momentarily, but I heard through the grapevine, through my wife, who follows critical race theory at the Heritage Foundation, that you have declared war on critical race theory and you understand its political origins. Why have you picked this fight, and why is CRT so un-American?
Well, I would say that I picked this fight, but I don't know if I picked this fight or if this fight picked me. This came onto our radar and came onto our table because we have been talking about indoctrination in our classroom for years. I witnessed it with my children when we were in high school. I witnessed it while I was a student at the university, an adult student at the university I attended. And on the campaign trail, we heard from parents and teachers and students all across North Carolina, complaint after complaint about how this stuff is being pushed on to how these ideologies are being pushed in the classroom. And then critical race theory has become the focal point of all this because it's being used not only against our students, but it's now being used against teachers, and now it's being used in some workplaces as well. It is absolutely insidious what's happening here. If you go and take critical race theory as it is applied now and take it and then take some of the ideologies that were pushed by groups like the Ku Klux Klan and other hate groups, you can almost set them on top of each other, and they mirror each other in the way that they divide, the way they demonize people by race. We have come such a long way in this country. We have come all the way across this hard-fought battle for racial equality to where we have seen a black man elected president, a very popular black man elected president for 2 terms. And that in North Carolina, right here in North Carolina, we saw 2 black people running for the second highest position in the state. Well, of course, a black person winning. We see black people at the very top of every spectrum, from whether it be entertainment, athleticism, politics, science, education. We see people at the very top, people of color at the very top. And now, after making all those great strides, we want to introduce a program that's going to drive us backwards. It's going to drive us apart, teaching people that they're somehow the thoughts in their head are automatically bad because of the color of their skin. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it's being driven by Marxists who want to tear this country apart for the purposes of tearing it down to rebuild it in their image.
It's not just ridiculous, it's outrageous. You yourself, as a black American, have been compared to the Ku Klux Klan in recent cartoons written by Democrats. That's how desperate they are. Lieutenant Governor Robinson, oh, that feels so good to say that. Mark, Lieutenant Governor, give us your reaction as a veteran, as a true citizen politician who now has one of the most important jobs in one of the greatest states in America. When BLM says it's about social justice, your response to their cries that the system is inherently racist, white people are inherently bigots, and when they say on their webpage, one of our goals is to dismantle traditional nuclear families, what kind of social justice are they preaching, Lieutenant Governor Robinson?
This has nothing to do with social justice. Social justice is simple. Social justice is concepts like you earn your keep and you keep what you earn. That's social justice. Then that's not what they're talking about. They are talking about introducing socialism into this country. If Black Lives Matter really lived up to their moniker and say that Black Lives Matter, they would not be standing up to the headache of police brutality. They would be standing up to the cancer of gang violence and drug proliferation in Black neighborhoods. This has turned into an absolute epidemic. The murdering, the killing of young Black people. Now, when I say young, I'm talking 4, 5, 6-year-old individuals being killed by gang violence. This has become an epidemic. And if these folks were really concerned with Black lives, they'd be fighting the gangs, not the police, because it's the gangs that are taking the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of Black lives in our cities. So what they're saying from the outset is a lie. And they've already identified themselves, which is a good thing, because conservatives like myself, we've been saying it for years, and now they're proving it.
It truly is appalling. You look at the figures, 6,000 Black Americans killed by their fellow Black brothers every year. That's where the problem truly lies, and that's not white supremacy. We're almost out of time. I didn't get to talk to you about what's happening on Capitol Hill when it comes to the ATF and Biden's nominee, but we'll get you on my show, the Gawker Reality Check, on Sunday. Mark, I have to ask you, got 30 seconds left. Back then, you weren't a gun owner. You stood up for the Second Amendment. You're now the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina. Have you bought a gun since then? America needs to know.
Yeah, 1 or 2. 1 or 2.
I love it. We've got to go to the range. We've got to go to the range next time. Follow this man, support this man. He is making America great again. In his state, he is America first. God bless you. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Next, here on Greg Kelly Reports, who's worse? Is it the Democrat Party, who are facilitating the Marxists, the communists in BLM and Antifa, or is it the rhinos on our side? We'll give you the answers. Stay on this channel. In the stinking, fetid swamp where I work every day, oh my gosh, there are lots of organizations, there are lots of think tanks that really, well, they're just grifters. They're snake oil merchants. There are just a couple of real movement organizations, platforms, and groups that care about America and that fight for America. You remember the Tea Party, that's when it all started. Today, one of the most significant is CPAC, the biggest conservative convocation every year, and it's where people who love America want to come, be seen, hang out with each other, and give speeches. And not too long ago, my old boss, Donald Trump, gave a speech at CPAC. Well, he talked about the future. Let's listen.
A Republican president will make a triumphant return to the White House, and I wonder who that will be. I wonder who that will be. Who will that be? I wonder.
Who will that be indeed? If you haven't been, you've got to go to CPAC. Amazing experience. I've been to the last 5 annual meetings, I think, at least. In addition to CPAC, there are, of course, a couple of new MAGA-oriented America First platforms. One of my top favorites is one called American Greatness. amgreatness.com. Full disclosure, I write for them, but the likes of VDH, Lord Conrad Black, some of the biggest thinkers right there every week. You need to check out American Greatness. And who do we have for you? We have the man who is the chair of the American Conservative Union, Mr. CPAC with us, Matt Schlapp, and the man behind AmericanGreatness.com, the founder, the editor-in-chief, Chris Buskirk. Welcome, gentlemen, to Greg Kelly Reports.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, good to see you.
So, guys, the big question for this part of the show, who's worse? Is it the Democrats, the Marxists they're enabling in BLM or Antifa, or is it the subversives, the seditionists on our side? I'll just give you one example. There's somebody called Liz Cheney who thinks that her job, well, she has a peculiar definition. Play cards.
I will do everything I can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office. We cannot be dragged backward by the very dangerous lies of a former president.
Not sure the people of Wyoming elected her to stop Donald Trump coming back into the White House, but it's not just her. 35 Republicans, guys, voted to create a Star Chamber January 6 witch hunting commission for Nancy Pelosi. These are people with the letter R behind their name. Let's start with you, Matt. Are we winning? Are the good guys, the MAGA, I'm not talking about people who just want to vote for Trump, people who love America. Are those conservatives going to crush the rhinos like Liz Cheney?
Yeah, no question about it. And on this commission, let's be very clear. There are several investigations going on as we speak. A lot of these people are being prosecuted. So it's not like we're not going to find out a lot of information about what happened on January 6th. What the commission would do is entrust Congress with a lot of money to try to take every Trump supporter and label them as a domestic terrorist, or as Nancy Pelosi likes to say, the enemy within. All of this while Black Lives Matter and Antifa burn down our cities, go after our churches, Jewish cemeteries, and create chaos in our major cities. And the Democrats endorsed that violence, all the dead cops and everything else that have resulted from it. So the Republicans need to wake up and smell the coffee. And I think these Republicans, including those almost enough in the Senate to have the commission, but they fell short. I think there's going to be a recompense with voters next year in November, because conservatives and MAGA supporters are going to have a big night on Election Day.
And guys, today, six Republicans in the Senate voted to create this commission. They didn't get the 60 votes for Nancy, so it's dead. That's right. But 6, including Mitt Romney. Chris, let me ask you, your website is doing the heavy lifting of what it means to be a conservative in the 21st century, how MAGA fits into all of that. Have we done enough work? Are we creating enough of a coherent message for what conservatism means and what it means in the face of rhinos like Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney?
Gosh, you can never ask me that question and expect me to say we're doing enough, because we're not. But I will tell you this, we're doing a lot. People like, the three of us, and there are a lot of good organizations that some existed before Donald Trump got into politics, some like ours, were founded really in response to Trump getting into politics, but there is a lot of work that has already been accomplished. We are way ahead of where we were 5 years ago. We have a lot of momentum on our side. Have we done enough? No, there's a ton of work still to be done, but I think, look, we didn't win the election last year, but overall, I think the trajectory is right, and we're really heading in the right direction.
Look, I want to hear right now on Newsmax recognize both of you for what you've done. I was at your house recently, Matt. Your fighting spirit is undaunted. Chris, you've done so much with American Greatness. Very quickly, in just a couple of seconds, what do each of you say to those who voted out of the 74 million for Donald Trump and who've said in the last few months, that's it, I give up, we're never going to take back America? Very briefly, first you, Matt.
Okay, let's be very clear. We are the largest piece of the electorate out there in the country. They try to make us feel little and scrawny and marginalized, but conservatives are up to 40% of the American people. We are the largest group. We get a little bit more, we get over 50. This is the time to fight. This is not the time to retreat.
Chris, to those who've said that's it, we're never going to win again.
No, we are winning. We're not. This is not just future tense. We will win again. I think we're winning right now. When I was in Ohio last week, I'm in Alabama right now. At every place I go in red states, I still see a lot of Trump flags out there. That's support not just for Donald Trump. That is people expressing their support for the country, but everything that Donald Trump stood for and the reasons that they voted for him in the first place. And what I've seen over the past, 3 or 4 months is the people on our side are more energized than ever. They are organizing themselves in legitimate grassroots groups. They're getting out there, and they're mad because they feel like the election didn't go the way they wanted it to. There are problems with it, but they're ready to go back and keep on winning.
Gentlemen, that's because of, in part, what you're doing. I can't wait for the rallies to begin. Then you're really going to see how energized we are. Guys, join the American Conservative Union, come to CPAC, and bookmark American Greatness, amgreatness.com right now. For a year, we were told you can't talk about the virology lab in Wuhan having anything to do with the COVID virus. In the last 3 days, that all changed. How did it change? What's the truth? Next, here on Greg Kelly Reports, we'll talk to one of the shrewdest commentators who's been telling you the truth since the get-go. Stay with us, won't you?
President Trump continues to blame China for the spread of the coronavirus. And as tensions rise, researchers from the lab where many on the right have claimed the virus originated say they are not responsible for the outbreak.
The president clearly intent on blaming China, saying he's confident the virus started at the Wuhan lab.
There was always been this urge, this desire on the part of the White House to blame China for this.
The Trump administration, for political reasons, it appears, has been pushing that notion that this virus came from the lab.
No, I think President Donald Trump probably is blaming anything, anyone, any country that he can think of, if that blame could help save his presidential election.
How very, very strange, my friends. For a year, we've been told the fact that the coronavirus emanated from the city in communist China where they have their only level 4 military virology lab can't have any connect. That's just irrelevant. Don't say that. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a kook. Until, I don't know, 3 days ago. Now the Biden administration is starting an intelligence review to find out what the connections are, because that's a very likely theory, which is really weird because my old boss, Donald Trump, he started that review when he was still in the White House. But sleepy, creepy Beijing Biden shut it down. One man who's been telling the truth since the most deadly Chinese export reached our shores, and a man who keeps me sane every day with the 3 hours of radio that he presents on WMAL is my good friend Chris Plante. Chris, what is it that you use? What is the phrase? Is it the Wuhan Red Death? What is your description for COVID-19?
It is the Wuhan Red Death. It's a sort of an amalgamation of a series of an Edgar Allan Poe story and communism being red and of course the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where it all began, where it all started. Yes, the Wuhan. We have T-shirts and coffee mugs, in fact, with the Wuhan Red Death, and I survived the Wuhan Red Death at the Chris Plante store. Not to shamelessly plug the store, but I'll shamelessly plug the store.
He's so smooth. He's so smooth. And I do like the T-shirts that say, remember normal. So give us your take. You've been in the media for decades. You've been on the other side of the fence, shall I say, in terms of news providers. You're one of the most robust conservative commentators today. Your reaction to this week's news that now we're allowed to talk about this theory, and now the fascists at Palo Alto at Facebook say that they won't delete our posts if we mention the theory.
Right. Honestly, I think for normal people out there, to the extent that we have a lot of normal people left, this has to be a very eye-opening week if you're paying attention, and it seems that a lot of people still are not. But this would be a good week to pay attention because everything changed this week and another giant lie has been revealed. And the lie was fed to us day after day, hour after hour, for a year, over a year. And President Trump, of course, was right once again. He was right all along. And Secretary Pompeo, right all along. You mentioned the investigation President Trump and Secretary Pompeo already had ongoing into the origins of the virus. And it was always a matter of whether the story that it came from the Ozzy Osbourne table at the wet market in Wuhan, somebody biting the head off of a bat, whether it came from there, which was never really considered to be particularly plausible. But the news media found people who were experts, of course, to come in and say that is a perfectly plausible theory. The alternative theory was always that it came from the, as you said, the BSL, the Biosafety Level 4 laboratory in Wuhan, China, the only such laboratory in the entire nation of China. And we, the State Department, the United States government, had known for years that they had issues with safety and security in managing viruses, and that they had been working on viruses exactly like the virus that was loosed on the world last year. And the news media really crushed the story, like they crushed the Hunter Biden email story and the laptop story out of the New York Post. And it's really a terribly unholy alliance between the so-called mainstream news media and the broader media too, with the late night TV and all of that, and the Democratic Party and social media, the Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, who really served their party very, very well last year in putting the kibosh on any stories that might be detrimental to Joe Biden, the Biden family, the Biden campaign, by way of the New York Post stories on the laptop and so on. And at the same time, trying to blame President Trump for a virus that came out of a city called Wuhan in China. And they've scrambled the eggs to the point where I think most Americans are just going to sort of wash their hands and walk away because it might seem the reasonable thing to do. But once again, like the Russia hoax, the Russian collusion, President Trump's a Russian spy, they fed that to us for years on end, every day. And it was a complete fraud. It was a complete fake. And we investigated in the Mueller investigation and so on, years and billions of dollars and thousands of lives, only to discover that there was no there was nothing there. And that President Trump was telling the truth, the media was lying. And again, President Trump was telling the truth and the media was lying.
How deeply ironic that for 4 years they labeled my old boss an authoritarian, a potential dictator. But the real fascists are in the mainstream lying legacy media. Chris Plant, keep doing what you do. It's not just the reversal about the Wuhan lab leak theory. It's about the last 120 days in America. They are covering sleepy, creepy Beijing Biden's disastrous administration. Just how bad is it? Stick with us here on Greg Kelly Reports with me, Sebastian Gorka.
If you've had it with the old news
and the same spent,
well, then Spicer & Company's your place
for the inside story
and for the facts that you need to know.
Do you listen to the TV on high volume or have trouble hearing conversation?
Less than 130 days. And what do we have? We have disastrous jobs figures. We have Russian cyber hacking. We have lines at gas stations we haven't seen since that peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter, another Democrat, was in the White House. Not only that, we have unbelievable violence in the Middle East. The Middle East is on fire again. And record-breaking figures for illegal aliens on our southern border. 20 years ago, you have to go back a generation to see figures so bad. 6,000 illegal aliens a day and 500 children. But it's okay. Cackling Kamala is on the case. She's been appointed Tsarina of the border, and she knows what she's doing. Or does she? We sent Newsmax's Mike Carter to find out what's up with Kamala.
If you had to venture to guess, where is Kamala Harris?
I would say she's probably on vacation.
In Mexico? Excuse me, folks. We're looking for the vice president. Have you seen her?
I do think that more leadership ought to be down here addressing it directly.
Do you have confidence that that somebody is the vice president of the United States?
No, sir, I don't.
Vice President Kamala Harris?
Where is Kamala? Let's ask a man who is the representative for the Fighting Fifth in Arizona. He was on my radio show earlier today. Andy Biggs, Congressman Biggs, you are there. You've visited, you've checked it out. Is it a crisis, or is it, as Alejandro Mayorkas says at DHS, not a problem and the border is closed?
It is, it's chaos. It's not just a crisis. It's gone beyond that. It's cataclysmic, Sebastian. I mean, we're talking, as you know, 350,000 encounters over the last 2 months, and that doesn't count the known gotaways and the unknown gotaways, which are probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 150,000, depending on who's guessing. So imagine 450,000 people coming into your country illegally in 2 months period. That's outrageous, and there's absolutely no desire that I can see from this administration to stop it.
It is truly shocking, especially when you understand not just the national security ramifications, but also the fact that this is a humanitarian tragedy with upwards of 60% of the young women and the children being abused and potentially raped by the coyotes. Let's talk about the broader problem here in America when it comes to getting America back to work after a year of shutting down America, 40 million people made unemployed. I have to ask you, are your Democrat colleagues on Capitol Hill, are they science deniers when it comes to this pandemic? Let's listen to one of your colleagues, Brian Mast, Republican, who sent a very clear message to Nancy about her science denial.
Madam Speaker, as the member designated for the representative from Florida, Brian Mast, I ask that given the updated CDC guidance, we all take off these stupid masks.
Are you still being fined as a congressman if you don't wear a mask in Congress, Andy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She wants to give you, first time it's $500, second time it's $2,500. They do deny the science. And Sebastian, you know this as well as I do. This is all about control. They want control. The left wants control. This has brought a kind of what I call a neo-fascist authoritarianism to Congress and the White House. We've seen power centralized in Washington, D.C., and they've used this epidemic to basically arrogate power to the center and make us all less free. And the mask is a sign of that, and it's part of the tyranny in the House of Representatives that Nancy Pelosi represents.
We're almost out of time, but I have to ask you one question. Do you have any answers from your Democrat colleagues? If they're vaccinated, why are they wearing a mask?
No, there's no answer. Look, I've seen them wearing double masks when everybody in the chambers totally social distancing. I've seen people wearing double masks when they're 15 feet away from anybody else in the chamber. That's fear, and it's symbolic of control.
It is very disturbing, and it is un-American. God bless you, Congressman Biggs, for telling this truth and for being one of the freedom fighters on Capitol Hill. So, what is it going to take? They're here, the Marxists, the socialists, those who want to deny you your freedom. We're going to go across the pond to talk to somebody who's a champion for the values that we all believe in. Nigel Farage on Greg Kelly Reports. As you can tell, my friends, from my deep Alabamian accent, I wasn't born here. I chose America. I'm a legal immigrant to the greatest nation on God's earth. As such, I was born and raised in the UK to parents who escaped communist Hungary, and we're very grateful to live in a free nation. As a child, I was formed deeply by the leadership shown by Margaret Thatcher, a woman who understood the connection between socialism and communism.
We were the first country to attempt
and to succeed in rolling back the frontiers of socialism, which is the first cousin to communism. No one else tried it. We were the first to do it. I remember some politicians saying, we're watching you very carefully, Mrs. Thatcher, to see if you succeed.
She stood up to the threat and she understood that socialism is the first cousin to communism. One man who for decades has kept that torch alive, fighting for independence, fighting for freedom and truth, is the man who made Brexit possible, a good friend of Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, who is now on the America's Comeback Tour in the United States. He's working with FreedomWorks. Nigel, I like to call you a good friend, a friend of America First, of the MAGA movement. Can you explain to our viewers why saying that socialism is a threat today in the West isn't an exaggeration, isn't hyperbole?
Well, of course it's not. No, because, I mean, socialists have now been... I mean, there were some socialists that were soft socialists and who had economic policies, Seb, different to yours and mine, but they were patriotic parties. The old Labour Party in Britain, when you grew up, whatever its faults, was actually quite patriotic. The modern socialist is somebody who denounces their own country, denounces his own flag, wants to destroy its history, wants things like critical race theory taught in schools, is playing along to the tune of the real Marxists in organizations like Black Lives Matter, and pose the most awful threat to our liberties and our freedoms in every single way. But, you know, I'm here in America with a big message, which is the British Labour Party was taken over by a guy called Jeremy Corbyn, a hard left, anti-Semitic Marxist. His rabble took over the Labour Party. And what has happened to them is they've gone too far. They've alienated working class and blue collar voters, families in the UK who'd voted Labour since 1918. They've deserted the Labour Party in their millions. A lot of them came to me when I was out there campaigning for Brexit. They're now voting Conservative, and socialism in England is now unconscious on the mat. There is no prospect of them governing for 10 or 20 years. And my message to Conservatives here is, I know you've been through 6 months of virtual mourning since the last election, since the terrible things that have been going on, but disillusion is actually a cycle of despair. You've got to see the opportunities. This Democrat Party, it no longer believes in America. In fact, many of its representatives seem to hate America, its Constitution, its founding fathers, and you will find in the USA, as we did in the UK, in the industrial and post-industrial heartlands, areas the Dems have held for years, they've alienated millions of their people. I mean, people don't want their kids taught critical race theory. So pick yourselves up, get organised, get mobilised at a grassroots level, make the right decisions in the primaries, and the Republican Party can come storming back in those elections in 2022 and absolutely take the White House in 24.
What a fabulous message. And it's not from some columnist, it's not from some talking head, it's from a guy, it's from a believer who did it, who created the greatest voting bloc in the United Kingdom, a voting bloc that voted for freedom and got the UK out of the European Union, which, my friends, is a socialist project. God bless you, Nigel. Go to FreedomWorks, check out his tour. He's in the United States, and he has a very powerful message. Together, we can defeat the socialists and the Marxists here in America. Next, absolutely. My message, God bless you, Nigel. Next, what is MAGA 2.0 going to look like? What should you expect? And what is the role going to be of Donald John Trump? There was a certain senator from Illinois who once said, elections have consequences. Oh, do they ever? This week, our own Steve Cortez sat down with my old boss, Donald Trump, for an exclusive interview where, well, I couldn't put it better myself. Play cut.
Well, it's pretty obvious. You look at what's going to happen is even scarier. The border is a disaster. We had the strongest border we've ever had, and within a month, it became the weakest, and now you have tens of thousands of people flowing into our countries, and many are criminals, frankly, released from jails. In numerous countries, we have people coming in from the Middle East. We have people coming in from everywhere. You go to the airport, you have to show how you're doing. You come through the southern border and you just walk in. We're the strongest southern border ever, and it's very sad to see.
It is so very, very sad to see the economy, national security, just America's pride in itself, how everything has gone south in less than 5 months. But don't worry, my friends. Let me tell you, as somebody who's worked in the White House for that man, right now, I give it more than a 95% probability that he will run in 2024. And he will be back for one very special reason. The man I know is Donald Trump, loves America, believes in America, and wants you, whether you voted for him or not, to be safe with your families and to prosper. That's why he will be back. And if you become part of the effort to do that, we will be unstoppable. So as we enter into this Memorial Day weekend, I have a message for you. America was created by a handful of brave men. Now it is time again for us to stand with our principles, to fight for the truth, because then we will be once again the shining city on